Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked Fly Fly Fishing, and today we're going to tie a rather elegant pattern called the mover. It's from Washington, and it's a low water style of tying, and this time we're going to do it a little different from other ties that I've done in the past when I've used floss bodies. I tend to aim for a robust fly rather than a really elegant method of tying. So you'll see in a lot of the approaches I use when I tie flies, I'm always not going for that elegant, beautiful look. I want something that's going to hang together when a fish hits it. On this one, I'm going to go more for the elegant look. You've seen my other approaches. Feel free to apply them to this fly if you want. But, we're going to do a pretty one this time. So, let's get started. Our hook is a Daiichi Alex Jackson Spey hook in a size 5. Our thread is a Veevus 10-aught in a claret. We're going to use an extra small gold tinsel, oval tinsel. Our floss is claret Danville. Now this floss has 4 strands of 300 denier each. I'm going to be using just 1 strand. I'm going to tie 2 hackles. The first one is Woodduck. The second one is guinea dyed claret. And the thing about this guinea feather, it's got a shorter barb than the Woodduck. And the wing is going to be made out of red squirrel tail. So let's get started. I'm going to start my thread a little far back on the return. I'm going to leave myself a lot of space here. And because this is a floss body, I'm going to be neat. I'm going to keep my tag on the side, and you'll see why in a little while. Okay, you can see that I've stopped here well short of the hook point, because that space between where I've stopped and the hook point is going to be taken up by the tag. And this is also going to serve as our rib as well, so make sure you take enough. And I'm going to tie this along the side and I'm going to leave enough tag to fill in that space where the return is. Now continue winding back. The tag on this fly is not very big, so I'm going to start coming forward. And stop there. Now I'm going to tie my floss on the side as well, keeping it the length of that gap. Now this stage of the game, what I'm going to do is going to wrap this very carefully, keeping the tags on the side, and just fill in that space. So when I wrap my floss forward, and if anything starts to move, just push them back. The trick to doing this is not to wrap tight. And if you're not tightly wrapped, of course, you can shift things afterwards if they begin to move too much. Yeah, I've got a little bit extra there, so I'm going to cut that off. Now you've noticed in my other ties, I would have already tied in the tag. But in this case, I'm going to be starting with the floss. And then we come up with the tag. Keep the floss underneath. And just bring your thread back in order to receive the rib. Now I'm going to put hackle pliers on this rib to help me provide tension. And I'm going to start by putting one wrap right at the back, and then start coming forward. And I'm going to tie the tag first. And I'm going to keep this fairly tight. I don't want any slack in here whatsoever. Okay, now we start our rib. Keep it all underneath. Trim off. Bring your thread back. Now this is going to be tied sort of like the rat series of flies in Atlantic salmon, where we tie on the wing first and then we put the two collars. So we go to our squirrel tail. Keep this sparse. This is not a bulky wing at all. Get rid of the stray bits. Now you can stack this if you want. I'm not going to. You want your wing to go about the hook point. Now I'm just going to mark that with my thumb and forefinger. Trim that off. Make sure that's on top and straight. Bind down. Okay, good. Now we're going to tie our wood duck feather. I'll trim it to give myself a tying in point. Make sure each turn goes in front of the previous turn. And pick up the barbs so they don't clump up on you. Toothbrush is handy for that. Free the barbs up. Here we go. This quill looks a little big. I may not be able to break it. I would prefer to break the quill off in this case. It makes for a neater head. But this is a tough quill here, so it's fairly thick. Clean that up and take a moment to break up those barbs. Now you've noticed, if you see this fly done in pattern books, you will see that it tends to be a little bushier than what I've done here. And I like my flies to be sparse. I want them to penetrate well, especially if it's a low water style. I definitely want it to penetrate and be quite sparse. I want it to, really look thin. So now for the claret dyed guinea, again we're going to cut a tying in point. I feel like I have a little too many barbs on there, so a little bit too much material. I'm going to carefully take some off. Okay, there we go. Now, as I said earlier, you want the guinea to be shorter than the wood duck. Oops, broke the quill. Oh well, we can save that. These things happen. I'm going to leave this in the video. I want you to see what we do. Very carefully take a few barbs off. Grab that spot with your hackle pliers. Let's see where that bit of the quill is sticking out. Now we whip finish. And a little bit of head cement. There we go with the mover. Unfortunately, a little misadventure with that quill breaking at the wrong spot resulted in a head that's a little larger than it should be, but that's life as a fly tyer. Things happen. I love the claret look, and you can You can make the hackling a little sparser, the wing a little thicker if you want. You can play with those proportions depending on what you want. I happen to like a lot of wood duck, and the wing basically supports that. But you know, it's your choice how you want to get those proportions working. But I say it should be a lovely pattern to use. So there we go, the mover. Cheers.